Hello guys, welcome back to Basketball Fan. So Stephanie White wants to continue building the Indiana Fever around Kelsey Mitchell. Now, you all know I've been very critical of Stephanie White. And look, I'll give her credit. The Fever did make progress by the end of the season. They got further than most people expected. But even with that, I still don't believe she's the right coach for this team. I haven't changed my opinion on that, and I've explained why multiple times. I just don't think she's the right coach for Caitlin Clark. The other day I was watching that beautiful highlight, the play where Caitlin made a defensive stop, grabbed the ball, and fired that incredible pass to Sophie Cunningham in transition. It was absolutely perfect, one of those plays that reminds everyone exactly why Caitlin Clark is special. And when I saw that clip again, I thought to myself, that's the kind of creativity and freedom that Stephanie White seems to want to take away from Caitlin. We've actually heard this directly from Caitlin herself. Remember when she got pulled from a game for making a risky pass? That whole risk versus reward talk came up, and to me that said everything. Stephanie White wants to limit Caitlin Clark. She wants to control her instincts, dull her flair, and turn her into a standard, predictable WNBA point guard. But that's not what Caitlin Clark is, and that's not what makes her great. And that's what worries me, because when you have a once-in-a-generation player like Caitlin Clark, you don't try to mold her into something ordinary. You build around her strengths. You let her create. You let her push the pace. You let her be who she is. Now, I know some of you are big Stephanie White supporters, and hey, I get it. She did lead the team to a respectable finish. But let's not pretend all of that was purely her doing. Many of those improvements came from players I've talked about before. Solid, available talent that the Fever simply went out and signed. So yeah, Stephanie White deserves some credit, but let's be honest, this team's rise wasn't all about coaching. And if she keeps trying to box Caitlin Clark in, that progress won't last. Now, pay attention to this because what you're about to hear really matters. Stephanie White said, Kelsey deserves to go through this stage of her Indiana Fever career. She's been through the worst of the worst, the growing pains, and she carries the franchise. And she said it again. We want to continue to build around her. There you have it. She said it at the beginning, she said it at the end, and you can't miss it once you listen closely. The way Stephanie White talks about Kelsey Mitchell, it's crystal clear. She is all in on Kelsey Mitchell. She's all about making her the face, the star, the priority. But you know who's not being treated that way? Caitlin Clark, the generational player who has done more for the Fever and the WNBA in 1 year than the entire organization did in the past 5. You can listen to every word Stephanie White says and still not hear her give Caitlin the kind of respect she's earned. Not the scorer Caitlin Clark is, not the passer Caitlin Clark is, not the leader Caitlin Clark is. For Stephanie White, this is Kelsey Mitchell's team, 100%. And they've been saying it since last year. So don't try to tell me she's the perfect coach for Caitlin Clark, because nothing she's done or said proves that. And look, she keeps saying Kelsey shows up every day, she works hard, she does her job. Well, guess what? That's your job. You're supposed to show up? That's not special. That's not a reason to build a franchise around someone. Everybody else in the real world shows up to work every single day too. People wake up before sunrise, work 10, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, just to keep food on the table. You don't hear anyone giving them awards for simply showing up. So let's not pretend that's some incredible accomplishment. You're getting paid, and pretty well I might add, to play basketball for a few months a year. That's your job. And if showing up is your main selling point, that says more about the team's standards than it does about your greatness. Now, if Kelsey Mitchell is so amazing, if she's truly the player to build around, explain something to me. Why did the Fever stink for years until Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark arrived? All those seasons before when it was Kelsey's team, where were the wins? Where was the leadership? Where was the elevation? Let's be real. The Fever were stuck at the bottom year after year. It wasn't until Boston came in and gave them some presence in the paint that they started to turn a corner. And then when Caitlin Clark showed up, boom, suddenly there's life, excitement, energy, national attention, and hope. And look, I'm not hating on Kelsey Mitchell. I've said plenty of times, she's one of the best shooting guards in the WNBA, maybe the best pure scorer at her position. But that's not the point. The issue is that Stephanie White seems obsessed with the idea that the Fever needs to be built around Kelsey instead of Caitlin. And I'm sorry, and that makes absolutely no sense. When you've got a once-in-a-generation player like Caitlin Clark, a player who's already changing the entire landscape of women's basketball, you don't build around someone else. You build with her at the center. She's your cornerstone, period. This is a player who's not only the first rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double, she did it twice. She broke assist records left and right, led the league in assists per game, and by the way, her average increased as the season went on. She had moments no other rookie has ever had, like draining 3 threes in 32 seconds, hitting impossible shots over elite defenders, and drawing comparisons to legends already. If you look at the stats, the leadership, the composure, Caitlin Clark elevated that entire team the moment she put on that Fever jersey. She brought in national TV audiences, sold-out arenas, record-breaking merchandise sales, and a level of excitement this league hasn't seen in decades. And yet somehow, Stephanie White is acting like this team needs to orbit around Kelsey Mitchell instead of Caitlin Clark. That's like deciding to build around Scottie Pippen instead of Michael Jordan, or choosing Tony Parker over Tim Duncan. You just don't do that. No great coach does that. This isn't about basketball philosophy, and this is about politics. This is the WNBA's old guard clinging to control, trying to downplay Caitlin Clark's impact because she doesn't fit their narrative. Stephanie White is just playing that same game, talking up veteran loyalty, showing up, and paying dues while quietly ignoring the one player who's actually revolutionizing the sport. And here's the thing, Caitlin Clark needs to realize that. She needs to recognize that this situation isn't built for her success. Because if your coach doesn't believe in centering your talent, you're already at a disadvantage. She's got to stop letting herself be used as a punching bag. Stop trying to please everyone. Stop worrying about being the nice rookie who doesn't rock the boat. Because the truth is, she's not being protected. She's not being prioritized. She's being used. And I get it. People say she loves Indiana. She wants to be close to home. But come on, you never hear that conversation with male athletes. Nobody said, LeBron should have stayed in Akron because it's close to home. That's not how greatness works. If Caitlin Clark stays in a situation that doesn't let her reach her potential just because it's comfortable, that's a tragedy. For her and for the sport. Because make no mistake, what she's done already is historic. She's given women's basketball a platform it's never had before. Every young girl watching basketball now has a hero because of her. She's made the WNBA must-watch TV, and yet somehow she's not the player this franchise is being built around. That's insane, absolutely insane. The Fever should be doing everything possible to empower her, not to box her in. If Stephanie White can't see that, then maybe she's not the right coach for this era. Maybe she's not the right coach for Caitlin Clark, because Caitlin needs someone who gets it, someone who understands that generational talents don't come around every season, and when they do, you build everything around them. But this feels like the same tired story, the same old WNBA mentality that's kept the league from growing faster. Downplay the new star. Protect the old hierarchy. Keep the status quo. And fans aren't buying it anymore. The world sees what Caitlin Clark brings. The numbers, the records, the energy, the spotlight. She's not just another player. She's the player. So yeah, Stephanie White can keep talking about Kelsey Mitchell's work ethic all she wants, but when the Fever start losing again, when the momentum fades, when the fans start asking why Caitlin Clark isn't being used the way she should be, we'll know exactly where the blame lies. Anyway, that's where I stand. What do you guys think? Is Stephanie White the right coach for Caitlin Clark, or is the Fever wasting the biggest opportunity in franchise history? Drop your thoughts below, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, thanks for watching. Ready? And as always, thanks.
And here's the part that really keeps me thinking, guys. What happens if Caitlin Clark finally realizes that this entire system was never meant to highlight her the way it should?
What if she wakes up one day and decides she's done playing second fiddle to a system that's protecting egos instead of pursuing greatness? Because mark my words, if things don't change soon, the WNBA will have another what could have been story on its hands. Think about it. Every once-in-a-generation athlete, whether it's LeBron James, Stephen Curry, or Diana Taurasi, reached their peak when their organizations fully trusted them. They were allowed to lead, to fail, to experiment, and most importantly, to be themselves. That's how they became icons. And yet, with Caitlin Clark, it feels like the league and her own coach are terrified of her potential. Terrified of her popularity, terrified of her spotlight, terrified of what it means when a 22-year-old rookie becomes the face of women's basketball overnight. Instead of embracing it, they're trying to contain it. But greatness doesn't fit inside boxes, and Caitlin Clark was never meant to be contained. Now think about this. Every time Stephanie White goes on record talking about leadership and growth, who is she really talking about? Kelsey Mitchell. Every time she praises consistency, it's Kelsey. Every time she talks about the heart of the team, it's Kelsey again. But when Caitlin Clark breaks a record or changes the narrative for the league, we get silence or generic compliments like, she's learning, or she's adjusting to the pace. I'm sorry, but that's not leadership. That's downplaying. That's keeping a superstar humble for no reason other than comfort. Because let's be honest, it's easier for people in power to control the narrative when the rising star stays quiet and doesn't challenge the system. And right now, Caitlin Clark is playing that game. The polite, professional, humble rookie who just wants to fit in. But fitting in is the enemy of greatness. She didn't get here by fitting in. She got here by being fearless. By pulling up from the logo when no one else dared. By believing in herself when people doubted her every move. That's what made her a generational player. And the moment she starts dimming that light to make others comfortable, the whole sport suffers. Let me tell you something. Every league, every era has that one player who forces everyone else to level up. Caitlin Clark is that player for the WNBA. She's not just bringing fans, she's bringing culture, attention, conversation, and pride. She's bridging the gap between women's and men's basketball in a way no one has ever done. You see little girls and boys wearing her jersey, people who've never watched the WNBA in their lives suddenly tuning in, and media outlets treating women's basketball like primetime entertainment. That's Caitlin Clark's impact. And yet, the Fever's leadership is still acting like this is a 2016 rebuild around Kelsey Mitchell instead of a 2025 revolution led by Caitlin. It's frustrating, it's short-sighted, and it's the exact kind of mentality that's held women's basketball back for years. Because you can't beg for mainstream attention and then muzzle the one player giving it to you. I'll say this too. You can tell a lot about a coach by how they handle pressure. Stephanie White's body language every time she's questioned about Caitlin speaks volumes. The nervous smiles, the deflections, the team first lines. It all feels like someone trying to keep control rather than someone confident in their vision. You can't convince me that she sees Caitlin Clark as the cornerstone, not when her quotes consistently prove otherwise. She's playing politics, protecting veterans, maintaining locker room harmony, and avoiding any perception that the rookie has taken over. But here's the truth. Caitlin has taken over. The fans know it, the media knows it, and the entire basketball world knows it. The only ones pretending otherwise are the ones scared to admit that a 22-year-old rookie just shifted the entire balance of the franchise. Now let's think ahead. What happens if this continues? What happens if Caitlin Clark's creativity keeps getting punished instead of encouraged? We'll start seeing the cracks, the chemistry issues, the tension, the subtle frustration in her body language. She'll start hesitating to make plays she once made effortlessly. That's what happens when a player loses trust in their coach's system. It's a slow burn, one game at a time, one missed opportunity at a time, until the joy starts fading. And that's the last thing anyone wants. Because once the joy disappears, the magic goes with it. And Caitlin Clark without her creative freedom is like Steph Curry without his range. Effective, but not transcendent. The Fever's front office should be paying attention right now. They should be seeing what fans are seeing. The fan base isn't rallying around Kelsey's team. The fan base is showing up in Caitlin Clark jerseys, holding up signs with her name, and chanting for her at every away game. She's the reason Indiana Fever games are sellouts across the country. She's the reason ESPN and ABC are investing more in WNBA broadcasts. She's the reason the entire sports world is talking about women's basketball like never before. And that's why the Fever need to pivot now. They need to recognize that Caitlin Clark isn't just another player to fit into the system. She is the system. Build the offense around her. Give her shooters who can move without the ball. Give her a defensive anchor who can protect the rim. Give her freedom, trust, and most importantly, a coach who sees what she truly is, the foundation of the franchise's future. Because if they don't, someone else will. And that's when the real panic starts. The WNBA is expanding. Teams like Portland and Golden State are preparing for the future. And you can bet every one of them would give anything to have Caitlin Clark as their centerpiece. The Fever better realize they're sitting on the golden ticket, and mishandling it could go down as one of the biggest missteps in WNBA history. So yes, I'll keep saying it. Stephanie White may not be the right coach for Caitlin Clark. Maybe she's great for Kelsey, maybe she's solid with veterans, but this is a new era. It needs a new mindset. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to be taught how to play safe basketball. She needs to be empowered to redefine it. She needs a coach who sees that her flair, her instincts, her creativity aren't weaknesses, they're weapons. And when unleashed, those weapons can take Indiana to a championship faster than anyone expects. But if the Fever stay stuck in this old-school hierarchy, if they keep pretending, it's still Kelsey's team while Caitlin carries the entire weight of the franchise on her shoulders, then don't be surprised when the disappointment sets in. Don't be surprised when other players start quietly voicing frustration. Don't be surprised when the locker room divides between Caitlin's people and Kelsey's circle. And when that happens, no amount of coach speak or motivational talk will fix it. The clock is ticking. The Fever have a generational player sitting right in front of them, and every decision they make from here on out will determine whether she becomes a legend in Indiana or a superstar somewhere else. Because believe me, if Caitlin Clark ever hits that point where she realizes her ceiling is being capped by the people around her, she will leave. And when she does, it won't just be a loss for the Fever. It'll be a wake-up call for the entire WNBA. So the message is simple. Stop trying to control greatness. Let Caitlin Clark be Caitlin Clark. Because the game, the fans, and the future of women's basketball all depend on it. Basketball all depend on it. For watching. And the more I think about it, the clearer it becomes. This isn't just about the Indiana Fever anymore. This is about the entire ecosystem of women's basketball deciding whether it's ready to evolve or stay trapped in its comfort zone. Caitlin Clark didn't just arrive to play basketball. She arrived to shift the culture, to force uncomfortable conversations, and to demand higher standards from every level of the game. And that's exactly why some people like Stephanie White seem to resist it. Because change threatens the old way of doing things. It challenges the people who built careers around mediocrity, stability, and the process. But the thing about once-in-a-generation athletes is that they don't wait for processes. They become the process. They rewrite the rules, and in doing so, they make everyone else uncomfortable. And right now, that's what Caitlin Clark is doing. She's exposing how much of the WNBA has been built around protecting status quo instead of nurturing star power. She's showing that fans don't just want structure. They want excitement, identity, and storytelling. They want to see greatness unfold in real time, not be buried under coaching philosophies about balance and team chemistry. Because let's be real, when people buy tickets, when families drive hours to arenas, when viewers tune in on national TV, they're not doing it to watch cautious basketball. They're doing it to watch Caitlin Clark pull up from the logo, throw no-look passes, and light up the scoreboard like it's nothing. That's what the people are here for. That's what's building the future of the league. But the problem is, Stephanie White is treating this team like a 2019 rebuild instead of a 2025 revolution. She keeps talking about foundation and continuity when what she should be talking about is dominance and elevation. There's a big difference between building stability and building a dynasty. And if she can't see that Caitlin Clark is the blueprint for the latter, then the Fever are in trouble. Because other teams already see it. Other coaches are quietly studying how to defend her, how to frustrate her, how to slow her down. And if Indiana keeps holding her back, they're going to realize they don't have to stop Caitlin. They just have to wait for her own coach to do it for them. And you can see the tension simmering already. It's subtle. A timeout where Caitlin's frustration shows on her face. A sideline conversation where her words are ignored. A post-game presser where she smiles politely but her eyes tell a different story. We've seen this movie before in sports. The young phenom who plays everything the right way, keeps quiet, trusts the system, until one day she doesn't. Until one day she realizes that the only way to win her way is to stop trying to fit into everyone else's version of success. And that's the crossroad Caitlin Clark is headed toward right now. Because as much as the Fever love to say they're developing her game, what they're really doing is dulling it. They're sanding off the edges that made her dangerous. They're asking her to pass when she should shoot, to slow down when she should accelerate, to blend in when she was born to stand out. And every time they do that, they're chipping away at the fire that made her who she is. You can't coach that kind of instinct. You can only trust it. And if a coach can't trust that, they don't deserve to coach a player like her. And here's where it gets really concerning. The messaging from the Fever's organization feels completely misaligned. Publicly, they talk about team-first values, but behind the scenes, they're cashing in on Caitlin Clark's star power. She's the one selling out arenas. She's the one driving jersey sales. She's the one putting the Fever back on the map. Yet in the same breath, they're making it seem like she's just another piece of the puzzle instead of the reason there's a puzzle at all. That kind of mixed message never ends well. Because eventually, a player starts realizing that her name is being used for everything except the one thing that truly matters, building a winning system around her talent. And you know what's crazy? This isn't even about ego. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to be the face for attention. She already has it. What she needs is a coach who understands that when she thrives, everyone thrives. Kelsey Mitchell would benefit. Aliyah Boston would benefit. The entire franchise would benefit. Because that's what great point guards do. They elevate everyone around them. But only if they're allowed to play freely. You can't ask a player like Caitlin to lead if you don't trust her to create. Now let's talk about what's next. The offseason is going to be a defining moment for the Indiana Fever. How they move, who they sign, what they say publicly, it's all going to send a message. Are they finally going to build this team around Caitlin Clark, or are they going to keep pretending that Kelsey Mitchell is still the centerpiece of the franchise? Because that choice will decide everything. If they double down on Kelsey, then don't be shocked when next season feels like deja vu. Flashes of brilliance from Caitlin buried under system basketball. But if they finally hand her the keys and say, "Go run this," then the Fever could be unstoppable. And let's not forget, this is bigger than Indiana. This is about how the WNBA adapts to a player who's broken the mold. Because Caitlin Clark's success isn't just about her stats. It's about her ability to bring mainstream energy to women's basketball in a way no one else has. She's made casual fans care. She's made sports media pay attention. She's made kids pick up basketballs again. And that's what's at stake here. The future of how this league markets, plays, and grows. If the league keeps trying to fit Caitlin Clark into its old framework, they're going to waste the most transformative moment they've ever had. Imagine if Steph Curry's early coaches had told him to stop taking deep threes. Imagine if Michael Jordan had been told to share the ball more instead of being allowed to dominate. Imagine if Diana Taurasi had been told to tone it down. That's what's happening right now in Indiana. And it's unacceptable. You don't get to hold back greatness just because it makes some people uncomfortable. You embrace it, you nurture it, and you get out of its way. So here's my message to the Indiana Fever, to Stephanie White, and to the WNBA as a whole. Stop trying to make Caitlin Clark ordinary. Stop trying to force her into a role that makes everyone else feel safe. Because greatness doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for approval. It demands belief. And if you can't give her that, then don't be surprised when she goes somewhere that will. Because whether it's in Indiana or somewhere else, Caitlin Clark's story is just beginning. The question is, will the Fever be part of that story, or just a footnote in her rise? So I'll leave you with this. What do you guys think? Can Caitlin Clark truly reach her potential under Stephanie White, or does she need a new system, maybe even a new coach, to unlock what we all know she's capable of? Let me know in the comments below, because this isn't just another basketball discussion. This is the future of women's basketball we're talking about. Like the video, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to Basketball Fan, because trust me, this story is only getting started.